No one showed up for the paralyzed CEO's birthday. Then a single dad shocked everyone. Evelyn Cross had built an empire out of nothing but stubbornness and a spreadsheet. At 26, she'd founded Cross Horizon Logistics, out of a one-bedroom apartment in Queens with 2 laptops and a used office chair. By 38, her name was on the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the Chrysler Building. And her company moved freight for half the retailers in the country. She had done it all with her own hands. No inheritance, no husband, no shortcuts. Then, 8 months ago, a drunk driver ran a red light on Lexington Avenue and took her legs out from under her, literally. She woke up in a hospital bed being told she would never walk again. She went back to work 11 days later, because that was the only thing she knew how to do with grief. Tonight was her 39th birthday. She'd told her assistant, Marcus, not to make a fuss, but Marcus, sweet, overly hopeful. Marcus had booked the entire top-floor event space anyway. Hired a caterer, ordered a 3-tier cake with white buttercream and sugared blue delphiniums, and sent invitations to 42 people, the board, the executive team, 3 old college friends, a cousin in Connecticut, and the 2 people Evelyn quietly still hoped cared about her ex-husband Daniel, and her 17-year-old niece, Ruby, who Evelyn had helped raise like a daughter after her sister passed. By 7:45 p.m., there were exactly 3 people in that room. Marcus, the catering manager, hovering near the kitchen doors, unsure whether to start clearing plates no one had used, and a single lit candle on a cake nobody had come to blow it out for. Evelyn sat in her wheelchair by the window, wrapped in the green dress she'd chosen because it was the one that used to make her feel like herself. Behind her, all of Manhattan glittered, indifferent and enormous. She watched the reflection of the empty chairs in the glass, rather than the chairs themselves. At 7:52, the elevator chimed. Evelyn didn't turn around. She'd learned. These past 8 months, not to hope out loud. Miss Cross, a voice said. Not one she recognized, deep, a little rough at the edges, like a man who spent more time talking to machinery than people. I'm sorry, I think I have the wrong floor. She turned her chair. A man stood at the threshold in a worn olive jacket, holding a large brown leather tote bag that clearly wasn't his, a woman's bag. Expensive, out of place in his calloused hands. Beside him stood a teenage girl in a cream cardigan, curly dark hair, a backpack slung over one shoulder, looking around the vast room, with the particular embarrassment of a kid who knows she's somewhere she doesn't belong. This is a private event, Marcus started, already moving to intercept them. It's fine, Evelyn said. Something about the man's face, tired, decent, uncomplicated, made her curious instead of irritated. Who are you? Tom Reyes, he said. I run the freight dock over on Varick. Your dock actually Cross Horizon. I found this. He lifted the tote bag slightly, on the loading platform about an hour ago. No wallet, no ID. But there was an invitation inside with this address and your name on it. Figured somebody around here might be missing it before the whole night got ruined over a bag. Evelyn stared at the tote. She recognized it instantly. It was her cousin Diane's, the one from Connecticut, who she now realized had probably swung by the building, changed her mind at the last second, and left in a hurry, dropping her bag somewhere in the chaos of city traffic and evening plans that mattered more. That's my cousin's, Evelyn said quietly. She's not coming, is she? Tom looked at Marcus, who looked at the floor. I didn't realize, Tom said, and for the first time he seemed to actually take in the room, the empty tables, the untouched dinner settings for 40, the cake with its single, stubborn flame. I'm sorry. I really did just come to return the bag. You drove all the way from Varick Street at 8 o'clock on a Friday. I was already headed uptown, he said, which was, Evelyn would learn later, only half true. My daughter had a thing nearby. He nodded toward the girl. This is Sophia. I couldn't exactly leave a strange bag full of some woman's identification sitting in a warehouse over the weekend. Sophia gave a small, awkward wave. Happy birthday, she said, glancing at the cake. That's, a really big cake. It was such a plain, honest thing to say that Evelyn, who had not laughed in 8 months, not really let out a short, surprised laugh. It really is, Evelyn said. For a party that apparently only 3 people believed in, there was a silence. Tom shifted his weight, clearly deciding whether decency required him to leave now that his errand was done, or whether decency required something else entirely. "Do you want us to go?" he asked plainly. "And tell me if this is out of line, do you want company for a while? We already ate." But Sophia's never turned down cake in her life. Evelyn almost said no. She had a whole life built on the instinct to protect herself, to never let anyone see the cracks, to be the woman who didn't need 42 people to show up, because she'd never needed anyone to show up for anything. But something in her, something tired of being strong alone in a room, built for a party, cracked open instead. "Sit down," she said. "Both of you. Please." They stayed for 2 hours. Tom, it turned out, had raised Sophia alone since she was 4, after his wife left for reasons he described only as her own reasons, and none of my business to share. He'd worked the same freight dock for 11 years, the last 4 as shift supervisor, turning down a desk job twice, because it would have meant fewer hours home with his daughter and more hours in a building he didn't care about. Sophia was applying to art schools, secretly terrified she wasn't good enough, openly certain. Her father didn't understand a word of what she painted, though, Evelyn noticed, watching them together, that he understood far more than Sophia gave him credit for. He asked good questions. He listened like it cost him something to listen well, which is the only kind of listening that means anything. They talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. Tom told a story about a forklift accident that nearly took his thumb off in his 2nd year on the job. Sophia showed Evelyn a photo on her phone of a mural she'd painted on the side of a bodega in Sunset Park. Blues and golds, a woman's face dissolving into birds. Evelyn found herself talking, for the first time in 8 months, about the accident, not the corporate version she gave to shareholders and board members, but the real one, the 3 weeks she couldn't lift a spoon to her own mouth. The friends who sent flowers once and never called again. The quiet, humiliating loneliness of being pitied by people who used to envy her. "People don't know what to do with you when you stop being useful to them," Evelyn said, cutting into the cake with a knife Marcus had finally worked up the courage to bring over. "Turns out a wheelchair is a pretty efficient filter for who actually liked you." "Not efficient," Tom said. "Just honest. Efficient makes it sound like a good thing." Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "You're doing that thing where you accidentally say something wise and pretend you didn't mean to." 11 years supervising a loading dock," Tom said deadpan. "You pick things up." Sophia snorted into her cake. By 10 o'clock, the caterer had gone home. Marcus had loosened his tie and was laughing for the first time all week. And the 3 of them, 4, counting Marcus, had eaten an entire tier of a cake, meant for 42 people who never came. Before he left, Tom stood at the elevator, with Sophia half asleep against his shoulder, and he said the thing that Evelyn would think about for weeks afterward. "For what it's worth," he said, "the people who didn't show up tonight lost something. Not you. Them." 3 weeks later, Evelyn showed up unannounced at the Varick Street dock, in a motorized wheelchair now, with a folder under her arm, and a plan she hadn't fully admitted to herself yet. She found Tom checking inventory sheets against a stack of pallets, grease on his forearms, radio clipped to his belt, crackling with dispatch chatter. "Miss Cross," he said, surprised. "Everything all right? I want to build something," she said. "A program paid apprenticeships for kids aging out of foster care. Kids like Sophia, who are talented, but don't have the connections to get noticed. Mentorship built right into the company. Warehouse to office if they want it, or warehouse to art school. Whatever the kid needs. I want you to help me design it." Tom set down his clipboard. "Why me?" "Because you're the only person in 11 years at that dock who ever treated it like it mattered," Evelyn said. "And because you didn't come to that party looking for anything. Everyone else who's ever been nice to me since the accident wanted something, a promotion, a photo, a headline. You wanted to return a bag." Tom studied her for a moment, the way he'd studied the room that first night, carefully, without pretense. "Sophie is going to want to design the logo," he said finally. "Fair warning, she's already got opinions." "Good," Evelyn said, smiling in a way that felt unfamiliar and welcome. I could use somebody with opinions. The Reyes cross-apprenticeship program launched the following spring, funded entirely by Evelyn and named over her strong objections and Tom's amused insistence after both their families. Sophia did, in fact, design the logo, a pair of hands passing something small and lit between them, gold against navy blue. Evelyn still keeps the tote bag in her office, the one Tom carried into that empty room on the worst night of her recovery. Diane, the cousin, sent a long apologetic text a few days after the party and eventually asked for the bag back. Evelyn mailed it to her without a word of resentment. Some people simply weren't built to show up, and she'd made her peace with that. But every year on her birthday now, the top floor of Cross Horizon fills up again, not with 42 names on Marcus's careful invitation list, but with apprentices, mentors, and one loading dock supervisor, who still, 11 years into his job, and 2 years into an unexpected friendship that became something more, insists on wearing the same worn olive jacket to every company event. No matter how many times his daughter threatens to burn it, the cake is always smaller now. It's always finished, and there is always, someone there to help her blow out the candle.